All right, let me turn my scroll bar off on the bottom. We'll get started on the formal stuff for the training today. And when I say stuff, I mean it's really, really good stuff. It's just, I must be ready for my weekend. Okay, let's get started talking about today's topic. Today's topic, I want to introduce you to artificial intelligence for GovCon 305. That's the number I thought to call it. And so I did call it that, right? And it's about using ChatGPT to get past company hurdles, organizational challenges you run into. Before we go too far, I really want to make sure you understand this whole idea that AI is not the future. AI is the now, it's the present. It is here and it's here to stay. It is the equivalent of horses and cars, right? Cars are here. You can spend 100 years trying to argue it, but cars are here and horses are out as the main way of transportation. AI is here to stay. Everyone is getting proficient. The federal agencies, your very customers, are getting proficient. They want to know how you're able to help them with their mission by using AI. And internally, their own staff is figuring out AI. They have whole career paths and training around AI. Well, you should do the same thing. You should be figuring out, how do we formally introduce AI into our organization, into our business, and how do we begin to make sure we're getting trained? And when I say formally, it could be as much as saying, AI is here, we're going to start training ourselves. Let's hit Google, or let's go to Neil's training, right? A couple of areas we're going to talk about today that are really important uses of ChatGPT and AI, whatever AI tool you use. I use Johnny, the ChatGPT tool, but you can use this for business process improvement, looking across your organization and using ChatGPT to figure out, how do I improve the processes I currently follow? And I wrote here that you can literally reduce tasks that take 8 hours down to 1 hour. So then you can go play golf for 7 hours or hit the beach for 7 hours, or figure out more important stuff to put into those 7 hours. But if a task can be reduced from 8 hours to 1 hour, you should be doing that. I spent 20 years as a small business owner, and SharePoint was a big part of it. And a big part of what we taught people was how we can improve the processes. And so when you start applying that to your own company, you're going to find a lot more time free to be able to just go home, or to be able to do other tasks that are important. So in today's training, we're going to cover down, if you haven't read this already, we're going to cover down on 5 main bullets of the training today, or objectives. I want to just talk to you about AI at the high level, which actually I'm going to get rid of that bullet in the interest of time. I'll talk about it as I go through. But I do want to introduce you to the whole idea. Think about ChatGPT or any AI tool can be just like a colleague in your office. It literally can. It's why I call ChatGPT Johnny. It's not just to be funny, and tell little jokes, but it's because I look at that AI tool as a person. I'm polite to it, and I also give it guidance the same way I would when I'm talking to a colleague, no matter what level they're at. So I want to talk to you about that, and then I'm going to go into real examples within ChatGPT and show you how to get answers to tough questions you have. And I got some good tough questions. How you can use it for talent acquisition. One of the biggest challenges in the government and in industry is talent acquisition, finding and hiring the right people. So we're going to talk about how can ChatGPT help there. And then the third way is SOPs and policies, right? These are some back office maturity activity that you need. And we talk about how ChatGPT can help with that. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you again to the federal sales training. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. And when we follow a process, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results. That's what I want for you. That's why I'm teaching you ChatGPT and AI, is because it can improve your processes. I wanted to say thank you to the sustaining members of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. It's through their generosity that we're able to make all this training possible, all the courses we might put online on our website, et cetera. And so thank you to the sustaining members. You're helping small businesses, whether you know this or not, from Guam to the U.S. Virgin Islands and everywhere in between, every single state in between. If you haven't watched earlier trainings I've done, this is the 5th of 5 trainings on using ChatGPT. And so I did some really good ones: how to write blogs, how to create a capability video, how to do sales assistance, and whatever I did on Monday that I can't remember. Okay, so let's dive into ChatGPT. Just this idea that it's like another person, right? I say it's your everyone, it's your BFF. But think about all these different roles ChatGPT could play for you. It can be a subject matter expert. A subject matter expert is one you turn to get advice from. They know everything. Well, guaranteed that AI tool knows way more than any of us, right? It's got so much in its head. And so they're a subject matter expert. They're also a colleague, right? A colleague could be somebody you tend to be doing a soundboarding activity with. And so soundboarding, you might do it with a superior or a boss. You might do it with a peer, or you might do it with even people who are direct reports, et cetera. But your colleagues, you're bouncing ideas off them. Well, you can use ChatGPT for that exact same activity. Doesn't mean I don't want you talking to people. I'm just saying, look at your new BFF here. A writer and an editor, if you've watched my other trainings and you watch some of what I do today, you're going to see that ChatGPT will be a great draft writer. They'll write draft copies of things. You can even give it content and say, hey, edit it, make it better, and it will. And then the other thing down here is ChatGPT. You treat it, in my opinion, right? You treat it like an intern or a junior employee where it needs clarification. It can do anything you tell it. It's a competent person, right? Artificial intelligence. But it needs guidance, just like an intern or a junior person would come in and they're able to work with us, but we need to give them guidance. Hey, this is how we do this in the federal market. And the last one is virtual assistants, right? You can pick these up for, and I don't mean this to be so property-like, but you can engage with a virtual assistant for like $1,000 a month, getting them full-time. Well, think of an AI tool or a ChatGPT just like that, except for you don't have the cost and they're there whenever you need them. Now, think about how could you use ChatGPT and AI tools to make the virtual assistant better, be able to do their job better, or the junior employee or the intern. Imagine having an intern write your blogs and your SME article drafts, and then coming to you and you're the one editing it. So there's a lot of thought in there. But when I look at ChatGPT, I see it from many different angles. So I'm going to go through 3 slides and just show you scenarios I'm going through. Then I'm going to flip back to this first slide and go back and forth between the tool, ChatGPT, and the questions. And so we'll bounce around. I'll watch my time, and I'll go for as long as I can. But this first set of examples, I was thinking of tough questions, right? And you'll see me get to it. But the way I preface this when I think about a tough question is, if you're sitting at the office, you're like, man, how do I do this? Well, that's a tough question, right? I'm trying to figure something out. How do I move forward? An example could be, I don't have a facility clearance. How can I get one? And you'll watch me go through this. I have a tough CPars. I've got a core who's giving me a bad review or whatever it is. What do I do, right? You can try to go on to YouTube or somewhere. Even me, if I have a video out there, it's one answer. But if you turn to somebody like me, you're going to have to pay a lot of money and get me to answer the question. Or you turn to ChatGPT and you can have a lot of dialogue with them and then come to somebody like me to talk about it. There's a lot of us out there who can advise you, right? But I want you to turn to your own internal tools so there's no cost for you to get early answers to how do I deal with it. And I'll show you that one because I had a good one there. And then how do you find federal opportunities? I get this question a lot, and there's standard answers, but I'm going to show you how I'm encouraging ChatGPT to think broader than the standard answers. The next set of type of questions I want to talk to you about how you can ask ChatGPT or Johnny is our talent acquisition. I said that that's a big deal out there, right? Where can I find candidates is what I can ask ChatGPT, and I'm looking for its guidance. I want to use it as my HR person, right? I can't afford a full-time HR person. So what do I do? Well, how do I find and attract candidates? What should I ask during an interview? What kind of scenario, like a Google or Amazon type scenario, can I ask to gauge their experience, right? I'm trying to hear, basically it's like the BS factor, right? I want to be able to ask them a scenario and have a scenario for them to answer. ChatGPT, I didn't get into this here, but ChatGPT will tell me will tell me the questions I can ask or the scenario. It also could tell me what to listen for. You want to be hearing this back and this back and this back kind of thing. And this last one is back office. Think about this back office activities you have for just the organizational maturity. So, you need to create standing operating procedures. There's policies like the handbook that you might be creating. A policy might be something like showing up to work on time or security policies. But a standard operating procedure is, how do we do this? An example would be, I do LinkedIn Lives every day, right? What's my SOP? What's my standard operating procedure from idea to whatever my final post activity is, right? There's a lot of stuff we do in there. I don't even have it written down. Now that I think about this, team, we should actually use ChatGPT and write our process for the lives. But this idea of writing a procedure manual is phenomenal because that's how you give it to an intern or a junior employee, or that's how you make sure all of you are ISO compliant because we're all following a standard policy. Well, you could use ChatGPT to go through that. And I gave you some other examples like step-by-step process. I want a step-by-step guide, which is another way of saying a procedure manual. A standard operating procedure, SOPs, are a little bit more formal. And then email signature lines, something as simple as, hey, I want to have a standard signature line. What's a good one now? What's best practice out there? So those are the 3 types of questions. And let me back right up here to this one. And let's go over to ChatGPT and start with the facility clearance as an example. Okay, so right here, I started it. Let me see if I can zoom in for you. I'm going to try to get in as close as I can without losing the data. So here I said, how can I get a top secret facility clearance for my company? That's my question, right? And I've done this a couple of days in a row, so I'm starting to have a way of how I talk to ChatGPT, but I'm not looking for these overly sophisticated prompts. What I'm looking for is to be able to have a continuous dialogue with ChatGPT. And so here I say, please give me step-by-step bullets. I'm trying to communicate to it. I just want bullets. Don't go off and give me a whole book on how to do what I'm doing. So I'm telling you, I want step-by-step bullets, do this. And then I want it to be 20 words or less because I know that the AI tools are verbose. They just go on. Just like I talk, they write. And then I tell it I'm a small business owner. So I'm trying to give it context that when I say, how do I get a clearance? I'm a small business owner. The one thing I didn't put here that I should have put might have been better is that I'm a small business owner in the federal market. That would have been good. So then ChatGPT gives me some of this answer back. Let me start scrolling a little bit. So here it starts getting a little bit into this activity of identifying the need for a top secret clearance, research requirements, complete necessary paperwork, submit the application. I'm looking at this and it's like, that's cool, but it's still too much of the what and not the how. It's vague to me. So I'm going to come down a little bit and come to my next prompt because it gives me too much. You lost me. And in fact, I communicated with Johnny. I said, look, Johnny, this was not too helpful, right? You're just giving me generic crap and stuff. And imagine if I'm talking to an intern, right? Come on, man, this is not too helpful. It's generic. I'm a small business owner in the federal market, right? So I corrected that mistake up above. And I want to get a top secret facility clearance. Give me no more than 10 steps. Don't give me 1,000 steps that I can follow. And then I said, I don't want to learn about FCL. I want to follow the steps to get my clearance. And so I want you to learn that you can talk back to ChatGPT. Be polite and nice, but be clear that when it's helping and when it's not. And so it's clear to me too. I'm sorry, Neil, my mistake, right? And then it came back and I started looking at this again. I'm like, okay, it had some steps and then identifying sponsor agencies, obtain a cage code. So then I'm starting to see, okay, you're going off on a tangent. So you need to refine it. And I'm going to keep coming down and refining it. But what I really was looking for is, okay, you said identify a sponsoring agency. Let's take that down. Sorry. Bullet number 1, it says determine the eligibility. If you're new to this, then you would ask, hey, what is the eligibility? And it comes down and it gives you some guidance, right? You need a certain business type, legal status, some contracts. But again, it's given me a lot of conceptual stuff. And that's not what I want. I want a really clear piece of advice. And then I said bullet number 2, which is the one I was really trying to drive at, because this is what I teach people. How do you get a TS facility clearance? You go get it from somebody else, not the government. It's really hard to try to find the government contract that's going to get you a TS clearance, but you can get it all day long from a strategic teaming partner. So I said, explain sponsoring to me. How do I get sponsored? And it begins to give me this paragraph, and it starts laying it out. Identify target agencies, network, and then I'm looking at capability statements. I'm like, whoa, you're going a little crowded. But here, what I saw was it says you could obtain a subcontracting opportunity. Consider partnering. Now, remember, I'm going very, very fast. But if you had read this, you would kind of be coming along the same line. And I said, well, explain this subcontracting. And it starts telling me, okay, you need prime contractor, establish a partnership, have some security agreements. I'm going to jump to my prompts because I got other examples. But then I said, do you have any suggestions or secrets, even though I say it's a process, do you have any suggestions or secrets that will help me convince a prime to give me a subcontract in order to sponsor me? And it says, well, there's no guarantee, but you could do this. Showcase your expertise, establish a relationship, tailor your proposals. And it's going on and giving me some more stuff, provide references, etc. But then I said, well, if a prime and I decide to work together, and this is where I was really trying to get to the point, is that if I'm working together with a prime, what's the process for them to give it to me? And it says here, if you guys decide to work together and the prime agrees to sponsor your clearance, here are the typical steps. That's where I was trying to go. So verify eligibility, review the security requirements, get a subcontracting number 3 agreement in place, get this facility clearance verification, and then security briefings and indoctrination. So it's starting to tell me these steps. And let me see if I did one more refinement. So right here, I thought it was too vague. And I said, you left out steps that the prime would take to help us get it. What are those steps, right? And again, it's super nice to me. And it said, hey, I'm sorry, Neil. If a prime contractor agrees to support your company, and it took me a little while to get here. In a minute, you're going to see me get to my answer fast. But it's saying if a prime contractor is agreeing to help you with a facility clearance, here's what they need to do. They need to do a sponsoring agreement. Then they can do the document assistance related to the government. They can then do the security sponsorship. They'll designate a point of contact. So now I'm starting to learn, so when I talk to the prime, who's the point of contact for that facility clearance? It's never the first person you talk to. They're just nice. Who's the one who's actually going to go through the process, right? They collaborate with the FBI in bullet number 5. They begin to help you set up security infrastructure and training, et cetera. So as I'm going through, keep in mind, this took me 5 minutes to go back and forth with ChatGPT, maybe 15 minutes if you read all that in detail. But I'm going back and forth. Within 30 minutes, I begin to build myself a really good list. Let me take this other one. How do I deal with the tough CPars, right? So here, let me come all the way up to the prompt. So here's a different scenario. I said, I want to ask you about CPars. Are you familiar with CPars? And the funny thing is, ChatGPT just likes to show us how much it knows. And it says yes. And then it goes on and on and on. I'm like, stop talking. I don't care. Like, it's telling me all this stuff. I said, good. Listen, Johnny, I just wanted to know if you were familiar before I asked actual questions. And then I hit enter because I was curious what it would say. And it's like, and it came back and said, I'm sorry, please go ahead and ask your actual questions about CPars, right? And so then I did. I said, I'm in the formal process of having a CPars written by my federal customer. And I think it is unfair. In 10 words or less per bullet, give me, how can I go about making a case for a better CPars review? And this is one of the ones where the advice I got back like pretty instantly was good. To make a better CPars review, consider doing this. Gather evidence of how good you did, identify any inaccuracy errors, provide documentation like, hey, we got this email from the customer during the year telling us how great we were, how we solved the problem. It was really their fault, not our fault, whatever it is. Number 3. Number 4, request a meeting with the Corps, the contracting officer, et cetera. Engage with open communications, telling me what to do. I'm going to stop here because this was really good advice. It's similar to the advice I give you if you ask me that question. One other way you can use ChatGPT is you can sit there and say something like bullet number 4. Could you give me an example of an email I could write to the contracting officer to ask for the meeting without pissing them off or something, right? Like, I don't want them to get mad at me. I just want to be able to have the meeting. How can I write an email? And they'll give you a template, an example email. Okay, so then last one here on this one, tough questions, is I wanted to find federal opportunities. And so let's come up here. And as I go through, I'm getting better and better at shutting Johnny up for a moment. I'm like, Johnny, I get it. You're an expert. That's why I hired you. In bullets of 15 words or less, tell me how I can find opportunities in the federal agencies to support their technology needs. I could have said construction needs or, office supply needs, whatever it is. But here I was trying to communicate technology. And so it came back and it said, well, the way you can find opportunities is you could search the federal agency priorities. You could attend industry conferences. You could network with the government. You could monitor the news, et cetera. And so then it gave me all this stuff. And I came back and I said, well, for bullet number 5, right here, you told me join industry associations focused on government technology. I'm like, that sounds good, but how do I even find out what that is? And I said to Johnny, For bullet number 5, what are the top 5 industry associations related with Department of Defense, which is where I sell? And it came back and gave literally everyone. The only one I actually wasn't overly familiar with was the 5th one, Navy League of the United States. But if you were new to this, these answers are spot on. Yes, I want you to come to the GovCon chamber, but NDIA has been around 100 years. FCA has been around 100 years, and they're solidly in DOD, right? This is the Army and Air Force. This is the Air Force conference I go to once a year or something. So this is a great answer. And you could have done that same thing with each one of these. It says, stay up to date on federal budget allocations. How do I do that? Can you tell me more? And it'll go through and tell you that stuff. So I'm going to jump really quick so I don't go back to the slide. But the next one I wanted to try was hiring people, right? And so in this case, I said, I'm a small business trying to hire people for federal contracts I've won on the federal agency. The market is, and I'm trying to set Johnny up here, right? The market is highly competitive for these people among other companies in the industry. What are 10 creative ways that I can find or attract candidates to my company? And then use bullets of 15 words or less. And so you notice it's not writing me a book now. Now it's just giving me a list. And it says, well, offer them unique benefits, leverage some social media platforms, implement or work with local colleges. I'm like, oh my gosh, man, you're telling me what everybody would tell me. So I came down further and I said, those all sound like the standard way, Johnny. I'm not paying you for standard. I want you to think outside the box. And all I wrote was that, right? Those sound like standard ways. I want you to think outside the box. Try again with 10 new ideas. I didn't give it some sophisticated guidance. I said, think outside the box. And it came back saying, the first one had me. He had me at reverse job fair, right? Host a reverse job fair where candidates showcase their skills. I love that. This is one that I do here, number 2. And I've done this for hundreds and hundreds of people coming in. But you organize your own networking event. You bring people in to hear about whatever they would want to hear. Now they're aware of you, and now you've got them in the funnel, right? That's sales, and you're selling to these people. Use a gamification approach. So these outside the box approaches were awesome, and I loved it. So it's something really to keep in mind. And let me give you one example on the SOPs. And so the documents, right? I said, I need to write an SOP for my small business here at the top. There you go. Give me a list of 10 bullets that tell me what I need to provide Johnny, the ChatGPT, so that we can write an SOP together. I'm talking to it literally like it's a colleague. And remember, AI is going to take over the world someday, so you better start being polite today. They're marking it up. All right, so what it came back is it said, look, if you're going to write an SOP, you need these 10 things, blah, 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 stuff we know. And so what I came back and said was, well, the purpose of the SOP, which was the first question it was asking, is I want to write a SOP for sending cold emails to federal small business specialists. In our company, this is our standard operating procedure when we send out an email. We don't blast them. We write one at a time, whatever it is. I said, give me a short list of suggested procedure steps that might make up the outline that it suggested to me up above, right? And it came back and gave me this thing here, right? It's compiling a list of federal specialists. It's talking about certain stuff. And then I said, well, what should my template look like? Can you give me a sample with headers and footers? Like, what would it look like? I don't even have to go to Google and say, can you give me a template? It's already in. This is basically Google, right? The way I'm using it. But it comes back and it says, certainly, here's this information. And I'll come back to this in a second. It gives me all this stuff. It looks a little matrix-like, right? And I said, well, that's perfect, but can you give it to me as a Microsoft Word format or, that kind of header? And it said, nah, I'm limited on that, but you can just copy this. I'm like, okay, so I can copy it. Let me come back up right here. So it says copy code, and it's not really code. I'm just copying the words. And if I switch back here to my Word document, blank Word document, all I'm doing is pasting. And when I paste, it just gave me the standard format, right? I might take these two guys and make them title. I can come in here to the purpose and say heading 1. The scope is heading 1. Responsibilities are heading 1. And now I'm starting to build a document literally within minutes, right? And imagine this taking an hour, where in the old days, it could easily take 40 hours to write an SOP, if that, right? And there could be ways that I could ask it to help me review it and to work with colleagues, et cetera, as I do it. So let me come back here. We went through a lot of these and they're good stuff, right? We talked about How I think you should be treating ChatGPT like a colleague. It literally can be like a colleague and a soundboard. That's how I use it. It's got a ton of expertise. It is a subject matter expert. How I showed you how you can use it to get answers to tough questions, and how sometimes you have to kind of keep going back. Well, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. I'm confused about that, right? You can have this dialogue to get tough questions answered to help you with tough situations. And then how you can do it for the normal stuff like SOPs that might be time consuming, how you can turn those into just no longer time consuming tasks. What I would recommend for you as a next step is to start using ChatGPT. It's free. Go get it if you haven't done it, and start practicing once a day, 15 minutes. Practice something that you're doing that day. Practice having ChatGPT help you. You will start getting better and better and better. The two things that make me an expert at almost everything I do is I read about the thing I'm doing, and then I practice that thing. I get the knowledge, and then I practice the skill that I'm developing. Hey, if you're getting value from all of our training, we appreciate bringing it to you. And we definitely would appreciate it if you became a sustaining member of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. So if you're getting value, become a chamber member today. And then remember, as you head into the weekend, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. Part of the process is having fun. I hope you do. I'm going to go have fun, and I hope I see you back in the next training.